Who are you, Talia? Where
My
did
own
you grow
journey.
up? Your journey? What brought you to, where you are today?
Sure. I I am now an Orthodox Jewish woman with a family. We have 8 kids together, and my whole life, from the moment I wake up to everyone I see, it's definitely something that I've worked to build. And we all do that in the smallest of ways, right? But my journey began clearly in the same way that most of our journeys really like the journey of the meaning. And you were saying about darkness. I was living in the darkness, and now I've had this spiritual awakening. So I was also at some point in my life in this spiritual darkness, and I shared before in a podcast that I was born not Jewish. I was my family, my mother, a stepfather. I was sexually molested by him, and that really began my journey into escaping into darkness. Really, I was 14 years old, and at that point, it felt I was too over. The feelings, my emotions were just too overwhelming to express. So I started between suppressing, repressing, and escaping. And I was 14 years old when this happened. I left my home at 15, and that really began my journey into this. Not really finding meaning for many years. I was in this self-destructive. I can't say that there was really one typical addiction because, yes, there was the drugs, there was sex, everything in between, but I really wasn't addicted to anything. I really just wanted to kill my pain because of when I was molested. It wasn't just a molestation, but then also when my mother found out, when I shared it with my mother, it wasn't, I guess I was expecting oh, I'm sorry this happened, a comfort, welcoming arms of my mother. And instead it was like, okay, well, we can't talk about it. It became a secret. It became something I needed to hide so that way he wouldn't leave her and her marriage wouldn't collapse. So at that moment, I knew that I had to leave my home. And when you feel that not even your own mother loves you, it sets you on a whole path of, okay, so I'm not lovable. I'm not, if my own mother cannot fight for me, then what does that say about me? And that was a very painful thing for me. So I left my home. I went to a friend's house, which eventually we got married. We were together, I guess this was like 15, 16. At 17, I was pregnant. At 18, I had my child and I married. And he left to the military. We were both young. I was 18. He was 19. At that moment, we had nothing to really grasp on. So he joined the military, and this is during war when the Twin Towers collapsed. So every young boy wanted to go ahead and fight for the country. And within 2 years, he was in Iraq for 1 year. He came back as an Iraqi veteran. The government didn't know how to handle or what to do with these young boys that had been traumatized. So when he came back, he really prescribed himself with alcohol and self-destructive behavior. And I was just kind of watching from the sidelines, thinking that I was still young myself. I was 20 years old. So I didn't know that this was PTSD. And I tried to keep the marriage together because we had a baby. It didn't happen. It didn't work out. So we separated. We got divorced. So at 20 years old, I became a single mother. But my son really gave me the strength to to go, but at the same time, I wasn't dealing with the pain. I wasn't dealing with things that happened. So between getting a bachelor's and between working and being on my own with my child, there was these weekends of like self-destructive behavior between the drugs and then I entered a relationship with this older person, this older man. He was about 10 years older, that we partied. And that really marked and even though I was progressing in life, I was getting my career, I was getting my bachelor's, I was accumulating material possessions, and I was traveling the world and indulging in everything you could possibly think of. I was in a very dark place. Thank God that this relationship came to an end. Of course, at the moment, I felt like, I was devastated. I cried for a month. And then soon, little by little, things just started changing. I wanted to come out of that darkness for my son, Luciano. And I started training for marathons. I started doing triathlons. At that point, I finished my degree, so I got a job at a bank, and things were going pretty well. But except that there was always this thing that was missing. And then during that time, so I was going through a very sensitive time in my life, and I was running and training for a marathon, and I lived in Sunny Isles, very Jewish neighborhood. I see this woman walking with a stroller, pushing a stroller, and there was something in that the woman dressed like a beautiful queen, like very modest and beautiful, impeccable, pushing a stroller with such pride and pushing it like she was going like somewhere like with a mission, right? Like she was doing exactly what she was meant to do. And something in that just sparked a little light in my soul where I was like, wow, I want that. Like I had no idea what she was doing. I had no idea who she was, but I knew that I wanted that. So I left that there. Like a few days later, I went to New York. I was there on a business trip, and the hotel, it was right across the street from the Kabbalah Center, and they had a sign like right across the street and said, "Come in and change your life." So I walk in, and I'm like, "Give me 2 of those." They're like, "Wait, let us tell you what we are." It so happened that they had also an institution in North Miami, which they connected me with a teacher. I sat down with him, and I'm like, I want to become Jewish. They're like, you have no idea what you're talking about. Like, what do you mean you want to be Jewish? Something in me just said, I need to do this. And then he said, no, like, just hold your horses. Take it easy, like just come and do the classes. And I'm glad that I did that. They say, oh, with the Kabbalah Center is this or that, or this, like, I think it's important to have different types of institutions. I don't really like to get too much into the religion aspect of it, because at that point myself as well, even the mention of God was not something that I was so open about. I wanted to be Jewish, but the word of God, because I grew up with this God that was like punishing, and if you do evil, then you're going to see evil. And I always said to myself, I used to be a big Richard Dawkins fan. He's like the number one known atheist. Like, if there is a God that's like this, that's so vindictive, like, why would I want to know this God? And so the Kabbalah Center had this magic of framing the words of like Hashem and God with more spiritual terms that I was able to absorb. So as I learned more about spirituality and the energy of the universe, I became more, my vessel became open to really take in what God and what that really meant, what this energy, this almighty higher power meant. And as I continue learning there, I did some of the holidays in my own way, not keeping really the way that you're meant to keep, but I was getting my feet wet. After a year and a half, I said, okay, like this, I'm ready. Like I want to do it for real. And it so happened, and of course, and when we say suddenly, this so happens, I really have felt that every step of the way, our steps are guided. It so happened that someone there that I was close to, became close to, was also going to start her conversion process. So she connected me with my mentor, Sarah Lucy Cohen. She's big here in Hollywood. And I began her school where I was already an adult woman, about 30, 32. And I was going to school 4 days a week to learn about Judaism and how to be a Jew, how to behave like a Jew, the mindset of a Jew, and all the customs that we keep. At that point, I went to go see the Beis Din in Miami Beach. And of course, they have to turn you away. They say you have to turn you away 3 times. So I knew this. So when they turned me away, even though I was heartbroken, I knew that this was part of the process. I kept learning. And a year and a half later, I finished my conversion process. And I became, everything was learning, I became Jewish. At that point, my son was not. They separated our cases. And so when you talk about, here you see this person that's living very much a meaningful life. This was really my awakening, right? Like I was going through a dark time in my life. And I had this awakening, thank God, and becoming Jewish, like because I didn't grow up Jewish. Picking myself, having this Abraham Avinu moment of, why do you do this? I want to take this up, like finding my own path. Funny enough, like this week, it's Parsha Lech Lecha, right, where Abraham gets sent on his journey to like leave your parents' home, leave that mindset that we develop in our parents' home, and you have to start choosing and putting yourself out there and making your own journey. This was it for me. So coming from a dark place, choosing every step of the way, and having the Torah and mitzvahs really, like, it just surrounds my life with the meaning and purpose.